what's going on, everybody? Dale Valor here with another MVD exclusive video. So listen, here's the thing, man. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and this was out and about. In the middle of this conversation, he was asking me what I do. And I was talking about, well, I'm a dating coach, and I have a YouTube channel, and so on and so forth. And the next thing out of his mouth, man, it really blew me away, because whenever that comes up, there's a follow-up of about 1 million questions that are all pretty much the same questions, okay? This guy, what he said was, well, let me get your take on this. Do you think a guy should settle for a girlfriend? And I was like, that's a good question, man. And so what I wanted to do was, I got his information, so you know who you are. I'm gonna send you a link to this video, and these are my thoughts, a little more concise than just being on the spot, So the question is, should you settle for a girl, all right? Or is it always about everything has to line up exactly the way that you want it to, otherwise what's the point? And we'll just move on and on to the next one, right? So we're gonna hop into that right now. Let's get it. Number one, deal breakers. All right, that's where everything should start, in my opinion. If you're talking about, should I be with this girl? You've been dating a girl, okay? And you've been out on a handful of dates, maybe even a dozen. And you're kind of thinking, well, maybe I want to be in a relationship with this girl. You need to have a list of deal breakers for you. And not just the random standard, like, well, it's a deal breaker, she cheats on me. Okay, fine. Like, that's a deal breaker for pretty much everybody, but what in specific to you is a deal breaker? Like for me, for example, a deal breaker for me, like I'll continue to date a girl, I'll continue to see a girl, kick it with her, things like that. But in order for her to have just a bigger role in my life, she has to be able to communicate well with a wide assortment of people, okay? It's just not just with me, but like across the board. She has to be able to hold court and hold her own in a conversation with pretty much anybody. That's important to me because I talk to so many different types of people, and I don't ever want to be in the position to where I'm embarrassed for her or she's embarrassed for herself or both, and so that's a deal breaker for me. So the thing is you should never, ever, with those deal breakers, let that slide. I mean, if it's a real deal breaker. Now, the thing is, there might be some things that are your preference, but you can kind of let that slide. All right, fine. And that's not a deal breaker. A deal breaker is it broke the deal. Okay, so you need to have those and you need to stick by those because those are the things that are important to you. And how much time are you going to invest in somebody who it just doesn't make sense, right? You're just going to keep dumping and pouring all this time and energy into something that ultimately you're going to get sick of because, well, she has these red flags and these deal breakers. So, is what it is, man. You need to have those, know what they are, and stick by them. All right, we're going to get number two. Let's get it. Number two, yes and no. All right, so look, do I really think that you should settle? Okay, no, I don't. But I do think that there's things that you can let slide that's not that big of a deal, So, for instance, maybe one of the things that you let slide is you get really annoyed when she takes food off your plate when you're eating. That really annoys you. Is that really worth, killing something that 99% of the time is good for you and you feel like everything's copacetic and things just, you just get along well and all that stuff? Is it really, you're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, And so that's what I mean is, in the first point, we talked about deal breakers, right? So in this one, we're talking about the things that aren't exactly deal breakers, but they just kind of work your nerves a little bit. Maybe you could talk those things out. Maybe you could have conversations about those things and try to mitigate how much that type of thing happens. It may become a deal breaker if she's doing it maliciously just to piss you off or something like that. But at that point in time, not really a deal breaker in my mind. And so are you settling if you're going to have a relationship with a girl who does things that annoys you? Well, I guess a little, but the thing is, I don't really consider it for real settling because everything else outweighs those couple of things that kind of get on your nerves. And ultimately, man, look, there's going to be things that you do that annoy her too, okay? You're not perfect either. So to hold her to some superhuman standard is a little unfair, and I don't think that ultimately, if you want to date to where it's leading to relationships, now if you're just dating around just to date around and, do what you got to do, well, that's a different story altogether. But if it's leading into where it's a relationship and what you want that relationship to look like, sometimes you got to let some things slide a little bit, So is what it is, man. All right, we're going to get to number 3. Let's go. Number 3, screen. Okay, look, man. Thing is that oftentimes people look at dating as some type of interview process or some type of way to see what a person is all about. And that is true to a degree. It's also to have fun and just get to know the person a little bit organically. It's not just stringent, all right, let's sit down and compare notes on paper. It has to be about how you feel about that person, how that person feels about you, the attraction level. All those types of things are super important. But you should have standards, and you have to screen for these standards. You can't just assume that this girl who's awesome that you've been seeing every weekend for the last 3 or 4 weeks, you can't just assume that she's going to be on board with everything that you think should be in a relationship. All right. For instance, man, look, if you're going to start dating somebody seriously, say she wants kids and you don't, that's going to come to a head at a certain point in time. All right. If you nip that in the bud and you say, okay, look, I hear you. That's not for me. I'm not trying to do that with my life. So maybe we just kind of part ways here as opposed to getting really attached. And then it just makes it all the more worse, because for her to change her mind, she may or may not. And how long, you're going to hold her up from getting what she wants and at the same time keeping you from what you want. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense. So you need to screen for the things that are important to you. And that all goes back to the first point, where knowing what the deal breakers are, knowing what the things are that are important to you and the type of life that you want to lead, the path that you're on. Is she compatible with that path, man? If she's not, then she's a liability to you. She's an extra obstacle to make everything that you do that much more difficult. Is that really the kind of partner you want? I would say probably no. So instead of letting things spiral out of control and kind of fall into a relationship with somebody that doesn't make sense, be man enough to have those standards and voice those standards. Not in a mean way or a malicious way or, anything like that, but in a way that she understands where you're coming from. She can see that you're authentic and you're congruent with who you are and the things that you want and all those types of things, that it makes sense, So that's why that's so important. Also, look, in the comments, tell me something that you think that you would settle for, okay? I'd like to know that. I don't agree that I don't think you should, because, man, you see this all the time where a guy's like, oh, she's so hot, so I'll just let her get away with anything. Man, she's going to get away with some stuff. You better believe it, and you're going to just allow it because she's so hot. That's not reason enough. But if there's things that you will let slide, I'd like to know what those things are. And also, man, do you have standards? What are some of the standards that you set for yourself that you want to see in a girl that you are potentially going to have a relationship with? All right. So, all right, we're going to get into number 4. Let's go. Number 4, abundance. All right, look, man, abundance in this community is such a cliche, you see it all the time, abundant mindset, okay? And I agree with having an abundant mindset, but I think a lot of guys get it twisted and misunderstand really what abundance is. Abundance isn't just having a wealth of things. That's part of it. You can have abundance in that, but more so, it's about the opportunities. Okay, so what I mean by that is this. You might be a guy and say, how can I have an abundant mindset? I've never been on a date in my entire life. How can I just be abundant mindset? I'll just dates are everywhere. Women are everywhere. I could just, I could get a girlfriend, no problem. When you know in reality that that's always been a struggle and an issue for you, how can you say that? Well, this is how you can say it. The opportunities are there. You just have to work on yourself enough to be able to start seizing those moments and taking advantage of those opportunities. That's where the crux of the problem is that likely if you're that guy, you haven't been able to take advantage of those opportunities. But those opportunities are there. This is how this all intertwines with settling, okay? If you understand that there's more opportunities out there that you can take advantage of, that you can go out there and make things happen for yourself, if you understand that, then you understand that, look, just because she's pretty doesn't mean that that's all there is. You don't have any standards past that, okay? Look, there's all kinds of beautiful women all over the place. But that doesn't mean, see, you can even settle for a beautiful woman if the rest of her life is just a mess. You're the one that's going to have to deal with that mess, all right? And is that worth it? In my opinion, that is settling. Fine, she's super hot, okay? But, she's $100,000 in debt. She's always begging for money. She's overly flirty with guys, while she's with you. All these types of things, man, that's just a nightmare waiting to happen. That is settling. You're settling for her looks and casting everything else aside. All right, so look, that all goes right back to where we started with deal breakers and what's important to you and what makes sense for your life. So if you have an abundant mindset, if one doesn't meet those standards, there's other girls that do. But you have to take the time to learn how to take advantage of those opportunities, right? So that's the deal, man. So listen, speaking of deal breakers, okay, we did a video a little while back on being able to screen and being able to have standards and all those types of things. And so what we're going to do is we're going to link that up here, man. And I think it's important because we go so deep on it and what it really means and really how to compile what your screening process is going to look like and the things that are important to you, and just not just what, hey, that kind of sounds good, so I'm just going to run with that. No, what does it really mean? What does it really look like? So go to that video, check that out, and I will see you there.